Welcome everyone to this is our fourth, I think, webinar, 4:30 Friday afternoons, Poets Day. And this is part 2 on how our products work. Before I delve into it, I've just got some more information I'd like to share with people about 5G. Over the last week, I had a lot of people coming to me saying that, you know, they've been looking at Optus and Telstra's websites showing maps of 5G, where it's operating. And we're in Melbourne, and so we've got a few people from Melbourne emailing us saying, you know, this is where the different telcos have got the 5G up and running. However, when I looked at those suburbs where they say that 5G is up and running, there's no evidence of it. When I say look at it, I'm easily able to read through Google Earth whether the full 5G is up and running. That is, that when you have 5G in your area, which is to enable 5G broadband, that's when all the streetlights go up with the microcell antennas in them. And that's when you get the 5G zone, which is usually a suburb, and they're putting them up suburb at a time. And in those zones, that's where you have that intensity of radiation, which I've been talking about in my blogs. There's 2 blogs about it. And the first blog where we did the testing in Canberra at Dixon, Leanne and I and Reese, about 13 months ago, that was in a zone with all the streetlights and everything up. Anyway, these emails coming in saying, you know, 5G is here, there and everywhere. It was great that they were actually talking about, you know, where I live in Melbourne and suburbs which aren't far away that supposedly had 5G. So I decided to actually ring my friendly Optus account manager and spoke to her, and she sent me a link to all the sites from Optus. And I also bought a 5G phone. Like, you know, part of our ongoing testing is to get out there in the environment and test, not just sit back and go, oh, we think. No, we don't work like that. So I bought a 5G phone. It'll arrive on Monday. And so Monday afternoon will be, well, we can go for a drive outside of our suburb, woohoo! And just test the 5G phone in those areas. But those areas I know don't have the street lights. The 5G is only for mobile phones, not for broadband, not for internet, not for any of them. So I'll be going into those areas and seeing whether it's actually true, whether we're going to get a 5G signal on the 5G phone or a 4G. It would stand to reason that those that this 5G is being broadcast most likely from 4G towers, and we've heard that in the past. Where in the beginning, Optus, when they first launched 5G, showed on their website a mobile phone tower, and in red they had circled what looked to be, they said were the 5G antennas, but they were actually magnetrons, which is part of every mobile phone tower. It's a grey box about so big. So it didn't really make sense 13 months ago when we saw that, considering that we knew that the real 5G was going into the streetlights. Now we have this further information that there's basically two different types of 5G in a sense. It makes me realise that, okay, it is coming from the bigger towers, but it's not dangerous like the 4G, the 5G streetlight zones. It's a completely different thing. But the thing about that though is that people are seeing this information and they're going into absolute fear. And we get the phone calls all the time. People ring, saying, "Oh, I need something. I've got 5G in my area." And when people ring, I go to work for them. I jump on Google Earth because I'm sort of virtually tied to my computer these days, like a lot of people. I jump on Google Earth and I go to their area where their house is, and I can read whether the 5G is there or not. And all the time, these people have been ringing saying, we think we've got 5G. There's no 5G operating. However, in the last 2 weeks, I've had quite a few Google Earth readings for people in Adelaide and Perth complaining about their health and or saying that they've noticed a shift in their health to the worse in the last period of however time. And some of these people have been actually in 5G zones with the streetlights in those two cities. Good on them if they can, because with the geocleans they can protect themselves from the radiation and they'll get fast internet, because where we are here, we've got a certain company's broadband, NBN, that never worked or never did work. Quite interesting. Okay, so let's start on the products. The first thing we'll start with will be the the Car Harmoniser. And I'll just share the screen. It's a Car Harmoniser in packaging. I'll just share the screen with everyone so they know what the Car Harmoniser looks like. And this is from the web page. It's a small energized USB stick. It's not rocket science. The USB stick is infused with our frequencies, like with all the other products. And by going into the USB port in a car, and most cars these days do have at least one USB port. Older cars may not have had them. And so what I say to people who have the older cars without a USB port is go and buy, and I'll name a brand which I know is a good quality one. I'm not being biased or anything. The Belkin brand, they're sold in the better electronic shops, plug into your cigarette lighter socket type of USB charger that will have two USB ports in there, one for your phone and one for your Car Harmoniser. Other than that, if you've got one in the car, great. So what the Car Harmoniser does is it sort of works a little bit like the geocleanse for the house. By going into the USB port, you're tapping into the electrical system of the car. And what it's doing is harmonizing a number of different things in a car. First is the kinetic energy from the motor, which has the charge, and the electronics. And if you're in an electric car, it's going to be a much bigger problem. The other thing it's neutralizing is the charge coming from the exhaust pipe. And okay, it's petrol cars or diesel cars only. What happens is you have carbon monoxide in the exhaust pipe with all the other gases. They're quite noxious gases, and they have a charge, and the exhaust pipe is a resonant cavity. That's that round, whatever. And being a resonant cavity, it amplifies those noxious frequencies throughout the car. There have been other people around who've tried to copy our Car Harmonisers in the past, and I just can't get it right because they don't know our technology. Who make claims like that, or try and copy what we say about our harmonizer, and they don't work because they don't have the knowledge base around the exhaust pipe, and they don't know how to actually neutralize that. We got something we call programming. We've been doing it for many, many, many years. We were able to cater for it that way. The other thing you get in a car that's quite toxic is the petrol tank. Like, you don't drink petrol. You don't want to breathe the fumes in. People who say are electro hypersensitive or chemical sensitive can't stand the smell, won't get within a mile of an open petrol can, and can't stand to be near it because petrol does have a positive charge. It's not just energy. So the petrol in the tank, which is usually just either under the back seat or behind the back seat, has a big effect on the energetics in the back of the car. And the Car Harmoniser is programmed for that. It's something we learned a long time ago. What we won't say about the Car Harmoniser is that it's not designed, that it's designed to save fuel. We will not say that. It's never been designed for that. Other manufacturers make that claim, and they've probably done some testing to back their claim up. We've actually had people do their own individual testing, independent testing, with our Car Harmoniser, claiming that they do get better fuel consumption, but we're not going to go there. You know, if you think you're getting a better fuel consumption with the Car Harmoniser, great. How that may happen though is that because you're having an effect on the energetics of the petrol, the fuel atomizes better because it has a lower surface tension. And by that way, you're getting more out of your fuel, if you're going to explain it that way. But as I said, I don't like to make that claim about the fuel, but it's interesting. It's very interesting. Another interesting thing is with cars, you get a lot of children or people in general, but generally, maybe more so children complaining about feeling car sick and sitting in the back seat of the car, where they tend to generally go. And we've had a lot of really good feedback over the years, because we've been making car harmonisers since 2007. I think we were one of the very first in the world to do it. And we've had, over the years, many people come back to us saying, oh, kids aren't complaining about feeling sick, or I'm not complaining about feeling sick because you've changed your energy in the car. Okay, next thing we'll talk about are our water and food energising plates. I'll actually go to that page. So this is my lovely brand slow internet working. You can all get it. Come on, faster internet. Hilarious. Okay, water and food energising plates, or food rejuvenation plates, we call them. We've been making water and food rejuvenation plates of different models. This is our second model so far, probably since about 2007 also. But God knows hundreds, or not hundreds, thousands, how many we've made. In about, I think it was about 2010, 2011, we changed the format to the acrylic plate, which is what you see on the screen here. And we have two different sizes, and we have different colours. A lot of people ask, do the colours do different, other colours for different things? And if you are really, really sensitive, you might prefer one colour to another. But some very brief bioresonance testing I did in Adelaide quite a few years ago was testing the water and food rejuvenation plate for killing a parasite which you commonly get in water called Giardia. And this situation was really interesting because the woman had a water ionising machine. I don't remember the brand, I wouldn't name it anyway. The water going from the tap going into the ionising machine did not have Giardia. When the water came out of the tap, it had Giardia, so there's something growing, some bug in there. And when we put the water on the green or the purple or the orange plates, it energised the water. But with the bioresonance, we were still able to pick up the presence of the Giardia. And when we put the water on the blue plate, the Giardia basically disappeared, so to speak. There was no charge to it, because the term we use is bioresonance. I'm not trying to make a claim here, but it was just an interesting observation. It was only ever done once. And to make a claim, you'd have to really do lots of testing. But it was very fascinating to see that actually happen. So how the water and food energizer plates work, they're all energized with our process. And what you do is you put your, I've got one here in front of me, water on top of the plate like that. Simple. I'll scroll down the page because there's probably better photos than me playing around. Oh, there we go. Waiting for it to load. Oh, there we go. All right. But there's a water filter jug with a plate underneath it. Another really good use for the water and food energizing plates is energizing food. The reason that food needs energizing is that here on this photo we're showing fruit or vegetables. Because we have uranium and coal in the soil, not everywhere, but different areas have different minerals which are radioactive. When you're growing a plant in the ground, especially a fruit or vegetable, the charge, that positive charge from the radioactive minerals in the sand, create an imprint, which is a positive charge imprint on the fruit and the vegetables. This is something I discovered many, many years ago, and I've spoken about it here and there. But when you put the vegetables or fruit on the plate, that charge is removed, it's neutralised. So here we're showing a large plate with 3 vegetables on it. What I say to people with the plates for fruit and vegetables, we don't come home with 3 items from our greengrocer. We come home with a big bag of it. So what I say to people is put your water and food energizer plate under your fruit bowl, and then put all your fruit and vegetables on top of that, and the charge will go through the fruit bowl and then be transferred to the fruit and vegetable, and it will clear after about a minute, not even really a minute, it will clear that imprint from the fruit and vegetables. And people who are sensitive, or people who like to play with pendulum, there's a lot of people out there who quietly do this, even though the powers that be and the skeptics absolutely hate dowsing, which we've spoken about before, which I think needs to be sort of elaborated on at a later date. You can test the energetics of your food very easily using a pendulum if you've got experience in doing that. And there's lots of really good pendulum YouTube videos out there on how to actually use a pendulum, which is really great information. Another use for the fruit and vegetable, or the water rejuvenation plates, what we're going to call it, is Leanne here likes occasionally to have a glass of wine, and the wine always tastes better after being on the fruit and the water and food rejuvenation plates. She doesn't drink wine with preservative in it, and that's really, really important because the preservative in a lot of wine is 2,2-O, and the amount of people who are really, really sensitive to 2,2-O is quite incredible out there. And when you drink a wine that doesn't have 2,2-O in it, it's actually really refreshing, and you can drink a glass or two and not feel like you've been hit by a bus, whereas the preservatives do have a negative effect on our digestive system, which is what people are feeling. We've got the water and food rejuvenation plates, as you saw, in two sizes. Smaller one for a coffee cup, take it to work type of thing. Larger one for your fruit and vegetables when you're at home. We've even had some customers who buy the plate pack, which has quite a number of plates in it, and every one that comes to the dining table, their dinner plate sits on top of the plate, which is a great thing to do because you're putting a nice zing of energy into your food. Okay, next product we'll talk about will be the Harmonywear range. I'll just go to the page. And Harmonywear is a range of, it's a small range at the moment. It's a range of glass pendants, the shell pendant, which is a great pendant, been really, really popular, and or energized bracelets, like we've got. That's the, what's that, the, I know the stone. Yeah, I know the stone. And a lot of people ask what's the difference between the Orgone pendants and the Harmonywear, and it's really related to performance. The Harmonywear being glass, I really like, and the one Harmonywear can cover the entire range of coloured pendants, but the problem is the pendants, the Harmonywear being glass and having findings on it, is not the sort of thing you'd wear day in, day out, all day long, like you would with the Orgone pendant. So I tend to say to people, they're great, they work really, really well. We've done lots of testing around them as far as EMF protection goes, and just don't wear them out because the findings after a while, they, if you don't look after them, they will become damaged. So wear them in between on those nice days when you could go out for dinner, which might happen soon again, if we're good boys and girls. And that's where if you want to go out and show yourself off and put something nice on and still have nice EMF protection, then that's where the Harmonywear comes in. Okay, the next thing I'll talk about will be the school and work uniform patch. Back to products again. This is an old product, a very old product that we developed, how long ago? At least 10 years ago. I've been doing them for a long time. They sell reasonably well, and what they do is they iron onto uniform. And this really came about really from a lot of secondary schools we notice in Melbourne or Australia. We get people emailing us saying, have you got something that my child can conceal that will have EMF protection that doesn't contravene the school's laws around not wearing any jewellery? And one way to do that is, especially with primary school children, is to wear larger than normal band around the ankle, which is a great place to wear it. And you can pull your sock over the top and no one will ever know. Another way here is using the school and work uniform patch. And we call it work uniform too because there are a lot of industries which don't allow any jewellery, like in manufacturing. You can't have anything hanging off your body if you're working with potentially dangerous machinery. You don't want your neck getting pulled into a lathe or something like that. God help you. For those people, it's a really, really good alternative to a pendant. They're pretty simple to use. You just get some greaseproof paper, put the patch pull the patch off the back and put it over the top of where you want to iron it on, put the greaseproof paper over the top, have the iron on very hot, iron it on there for about, I count to about 13, 14 seconds if I was doing it myself. Leave it to cool, leave the greaseproof paper to cool. Then when it's cool, gently peel it off and it'll be stuck well to the garment. You can wash the garment and there will be a little bit of attrition with the school and uniform patch, in the sense it might wear a little bit in the washing machine. Don't worry about that. That actually doesn't affect its performance. You could have a quarter of the patch left after, a couple of years, and that quarter would still be doing its job in neutralising the radiation charge around the person. Okay, the next thing we'll go on to, we'll have some questions at the end too, so I won't ignore that. Will be blanking. I'll talk about we call it blanking, sorry. Our Orgone rejuvenation blanket. We actually don't have them in stock at the moment, but thank God we got things moving with these again only last week, and we'll have them hopefully within 3 weeks' time. We'll have the cream blanket, and when we do have it, we'll send out a newsletter announcing it, a little blog around the blanket. But the history, the blankets we've been doing also for 10, 15 years, I'd say, of different types or models. And this one has been our most popular, being the bamboo blanket. It's nice and soft. It's got nice satin polyester edging around it. It's energized. And the whole idea of an energized blanket is, and we're not making health claims or anything like that, but let's take my personal experiences. Occasionally I get rheumatoid arthritis. People who know me will go, how's your hand? You're like, touch wood, it's good. And I've managed to stay on top of it. But when I get it, it really hits me like a ton of bricks. And I have all sorts of things going through my body not just the pain from the rheumatoid arthritis, which I usually get in my wrist. And I use the blanket to bring my body energy level up, because the reason I get the rheumatoid arthritis is there's always a virus, not the COVID virus, but other viruses going through me in the background, which triggers this reaction. I'll wrap the blanket around me. Sometimes I might, if you do, or like I used to get when the rheumatoid arthritis was really bad, I would get a chill. And okay, the blanket's warm, it warms you up, but it's the energetics which settles the body down. And I would wrap the blanket around the wrist, because I used to get it in the wrist, or like when I broke my arm, this arm last year in 5 places, I would wrap the blanket around the arm, and the energetics would help to soothe the pain. And you're not allowed to make claims about pain. We all know that. I'm not making a claim, but hey, geez, it seemed to work that way for me and did give me relief. And I've had other people making the same statement, saying that they bought a blanket and they had something going on with the body and the pain didn't go away, but it did help to reduce the pain, even though we're not making a claim about that. The history of the Orgone blanket is really, really interesting. I started doing them my way, which is taking a material like the bamboo blanket and infusing it with our infusion system, because every other orgone blanket I'd seen on the market beforehand were incredibly dangerous, and there's still one on the market from Russia. I won't name any brands. It costs, I think, around the $500-600 mark. Ours are only, when we have them in 3 weeks' time, $264. That's a really good price. What I had found with the other blankets is they were made in the traditional method of a lamination of a metallic material and a woolen type material, which is one way to produce the charge. But it's a very haphazard way of doing that, and the charge or the frequency with the laminate blankets is not correct. There's actually something not quite right with it. But however, you have to know what you're talking about and have experience with it to actually pick up on it. And those blankets, if you folded them, they didn't fold very well. And when you did fold them, they would actually accumulate a positive charge around them. So they became a EMF danger in the house when you didn't want to bring in another EMF danger into the house. Our blankets don't do that whatsoever, because we're not made of a lamination. It's an infusion. And we've had lots of testing with kinesiologists and bioresonance practitioners, years ago in the very beginning, to get the charge right, and we do it the same way all the time. It's a beautiful balancing, supporting energy. It's something else where the blanket really does a good job is, I see a lot of people using these amethyst mats with a heating panel in them, which they claim to produce a negative charge or far infrared. And they pay a fortune for these things, about $1,400-1,500. And what people don't know is that those amethyst crystal-filled mats, the electricity supplied to the heating device within the blanket creates a positive charge, so it creates an EMF field which is amplified by the crystals. And they are, to me, are potentially very dangerous things to be using, because when you think you're getting something good for you, or not actually getting something good for you, if you're using those mats with a geocleanse, well, then everything's okay, because the frequency going, the electrical frequency going into the heating component in the mat will then have a negative charge, which is what the mats are designed to do. But instead of paying $1,500 for something big and clunky, and to get the same result, if not a better result, the Orgone blanket does the same thing. Very interesting. Okay, someone's giving me some directions here. No, Leanne wants me to hold up. No, our blanket's all dirty. I'll give you the clean side. This is a pale green one we used to have. We're not doing them anymore. Our suppliers are a little bit rigid on the colours. Another really good use for the Orgone blanket too is when we fly. Okay, we've got our aircraft cabin gifts, which we take all the time. But we just like to have the blanket in the cabin and just wrap it around us, and acts like a little cocoon to protect us from the other people's energy who are really when you're close to us in an aircraft. In the old days when we did fly, we loved to fly with the extra bit of leg room, but you could not always get that. So you're all jammed in like sardines, and you're in there overlapping energy fields, and the blanket worked really well there. Okay, we'll move on from blanket to we'll move on to the Ionic Wand. Some people with the Ionic Wand sort of go, why do you do a product like that? Your EMF harmonizing products. To make EMF harmonizers, to get it right, you have to have the right frequency and the right method or system. And that frequency is a healing frequency for the body. It stands to reason. We all know that radiation has a negative effect on our meridians, because that radiation has a positive charge. Our meridian energy has a negative charge. And when things aren't quite right and in balance in the body, and especially with exposure to radiation, our meridian energy then depletes, so that negative charge isn't so strong. So to support and balance the negative charge and increase that to bring everything into balance, you need another negative charge, basically, in a sense, to feed it. And so our wands, here's a wand here. I've been doing these for many years too. And the reason why I started doing them was about, 10 years ago, a number of wands came onto the market, which were really expensive, like $300-400. And they were made of stainless steel. And there's all these claims being made about them. And because I can test harmonizers and I can test vibrations and frequencies and things like that, we got our hands on some of them and tested them and went, wow, now there's something not quite right here. The claims they're making, it could be substantiated because they didn't have a negative charge. It was more a positive charge, which meant they were not beneficial whatsoever to our meridians. And a wand isn't something you use like a magician. A wand is something that you use on your meridians. Some people say chakras, which are our nerve plexuses, or in our biofield. Yep, you can use them in your biofield. But I say wands are great, and what we use them for is bringing our meridian energy up, because toxins, emotions, all sorts of other things can interfere with our meridian energy. Heavy metals, parasites in guts, you know that there's a whole range of different things which will do that. And so to bring your meridian energy up, what you do is run, and that's, so for example, your, no, it's not triple. Circulation meridian, which is that finger there. I won't like to do that yet. And you run it up, and you run the meridian like that, up and down. And people who are sensitive to energy, who are really good with their body, you can actually do your own audit on your meridians. You don't need to be a kinesiologist or have a bioresonance machine to do that. Because a meridian is a channel of energy, if you, with your other hand, imagine that channel of energy being like an extension out of the body, if the meridian energy is turned on, when you run your finger over the meridian or your hands across it, you see, I blink, I get a reaction in the eyes, but you can feel a distinct light energy. That means that the meridian energy is working properly. If you run your hand over a meridian where the meridian is turned off or it's low in energy, I get a jaw lock. It's because I muscle test with my jaw. You'll get a heavy feeling energy, so then you would run that meridian. Well, this is the triple warmer meridian. I'm not running the whole thing, but you'd run that meridian to bring the energy up. And just by sitting here playing with it, like I'm running the central meridian now, which is a really important one, and there, just by me playing with it, after a couple of minutes of it, I'm sitting here going, wow, I feel really, really good. The sensitive people will really pick up on that. They'll notice the difference in how they feel. Some people use a wand for EMF protection. It's not really designed for that. However, you see people, mainly women, used to like to have them in their handbags, or they'll energize their water with it, like the plates. They'll just put the wand in their glass of water, or if they're out to dinner, they'll put the wand under the edge of the plate. So long as the wand's in contact with another material, it will pass that frequency or the energy of it onto the other material. Okay, last product we'll look at today, and then we'll go into some questions. Oh, okay. Is our bamboo toothbrush, which is an energized bamboo toothbrush. So this is another product we've been doing for a long time. It's what I call cheap and cheerful. Energized or ionized toothbrushes, depending on where they're coming from, can be very expensive. How it works is the bristles are energized in our process, so the bristles have a negative charge. The plaque has a positive charge. So when you brush your teeth with a toothpaste, hopefully without any nasties in it, and I still always say use toothpaste because you want fresh breath. The negative charge attracts the positive charge, and it's supposed to clean the teeth better than a bristle that's not energized. I'm not the first one in the world to do that. We saw it somewhere else at a very expensive price and thought, well, we can do that easily without a lot of problems. And there's a great supplier of the bamboo toothbrushes in Australia, so we approach them, we get their brushes and we energize them. We're not hiding anything. That's just how we do some things. We're able, with our process of Energized, being able to buy something like our USB chargers, turn them into car harmonizers with the energizing process. So we've done the same thing with the toothbrushes, and we love them. We've been using them for years and years and years. I will also say a charcoal bristle toothbrush will do the same thing. Like, we're not the only one, there's other ways of doing it. And charcoal does have a negative charge, although it's very, very, very weak. It's sort of like in the same boat as shungite. They're both black. The black colour detracts from their field of effect, how far they may work. But to touch them, they do have a negative charge, but they don't have an EMF balancing effect. Which, you know, there are people out there pushing shungite. I know someone recently pushing shungite for 5G, and I'm just like, boy, that's really misleading the public, because the shungite pyramids don't do anything. They seem to charge upwards. It doesn't go out. It doesn't work like a dome. I'm not knocking anything. I'm just, because I've been around for 20 years, like we saw shungite 15 years ago. It's just become popular lately. We were testing it 15 years ago. I remember one guy at a certain expo selling shungite knew the limitations of it, and knew that if the shungite was energized with our process, that you could get a better performance out of it. But I just wasn't really interested in energizing anyone's shungite for anyone else. Okay. Oh, we've got one. No, that's not a Stellar Cabin disc. We're going to do the Stellar Cabin disc. But I don't have one here. I was supposed to bring one home from the factory. You know how things go. Okay, but I'll go to the web page. The Stellar Cabin disc used to look like, while we're waiting for Mr. Slow to open up, it used to look like that. It was a 6-sided disc. It didn't have the addition of the reflective bottom on it. This was put together when we started producing the reflective bottom just to play with. The Stellar Dome is like what we see now on the screen. It's a smaller version of the Stellar Dome. It's more powerful than the older hexagonal shaped cabin disc. It's designed, as we say, for aircraft cabins, because aircraft cabins, like car cabins, are extremely noxious as far as their energy goes. I've got a private pilot's license, and I developed the Stellar Cabin disc for when I fly light aircraft. Like, I grew up in an aviation family, and I love my flying, and I'm 56 years old, and that's, you know, when we're allowed to fly, which we are now, that's my bit of recreation. Just go down to our local airport at Tybe and jump in a Cessna and get in the air. It's fantastic fun. Anyway, before I developed the cabin disc, at that time I was doing a lot of interstate travel to expos. I was flying here, there and everywhere. And those large passenger jets, the cabins really irked me. I was really feeling not very well in them. Okay, I'm sensitive to energy, but I'm not that sensitive. I'm electro-hypersensitive, but it was plainly obvious to me that there was something really not right in aircraft cabin, which made me maybe then think, well, you know, what about, you know, air sickness? Is that connected to it? Because if your stomach or meridian and your stomach energy is interfered with by the radiation, and depending on what you've been eating and what your constitution's like, it could cause air sickness. Mind you, we're not making a claim that the cabin disc cures air sickness, although over the years, because we've been doing it for a long time, we have had quite a few people come to us and they say, wow, I bought a cabin disc, and this is a classic one. My husband doesn't believe in rubbish, this sort of stuff, but I do, because I've got a brain in my head. And we took it on our trip to the UK, and when we got off the plane, I usually are totally wiped and get nauseous, air sick in the plane, and all the way from start to end, I didn't get sick, I didn't get run down, I felt really good. That's a really, really common bit of feedback we get about the Stellar Cabin disc. In light aircraft, I found it amazing, because in a light aircraft, not that there be many of you listening to or watching today who would do that, that the aircraft energies in light aircraft cabins are really toxic. My father was a flying instructor, and he had some prostate problems towards the end of his life, which I know were due to the energies in the aircraft cabin, because he spent 33,000 hours in light aircraft in his career. And some of his mates all have either died of prostate cancer or have prostate problems, which was really interesting. It'd be interesting to see a real study done into how many general aviation pilots end up having prostate problems when they really didn't have that problem in the beginning, is what's going on in the aircraft to do that. And after experience the before and after in a light aircraft with and without a cabin disc, I wouldn't fly anywhere at any time without one. Even my flying instructor now, I make sure he's got one in his headset bag all the time, now that they're back to work. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, I've got some questions. I'll go to the questions. So I don't want to leave anyone out. Okay, Susie wants to know if the Stellar Dome in the car will work. Yes, it will, absolutely. You know, you don't have to have the Car Harmoniser. It's not the only thing that will work. I have played with the cabin disc in the car, and it works, or sorry, the Stellar Dome and all the cabin disc in the car, and they work beautifully. Do we know it needs replacement? They don't need replacing. None of it. Our products don't run out. Over the years, especially with the GeoCleanse and now the new Stellar Dome, we've upgraded the programming for when we find it fit to do so, like when we discovered what was really happening to our home environments when we have high solar winds or retrogrades and things like that. And we've got a period coming up over the next few days where we may have very high solar winds on the planet again too. I'll actually share the screen and show you the website. I'm just diverging a little bit here, but this is really, a lot of you people will find this really interesting. The website, which I look at every morning, which is spaceweather.com. And if you look here, you'll see the solar wind speed. And today, right now, it's 291 kilometers per second. There is a sunspot on the other side of the sun, which is slowly rotating around and will be facing us, I think, on the weekend. And that solar wind speed may go from 291.3 k's per second, which is relatively low. It may jump up to 4, 5, 6, and I've even seen as high as 700 kilometers per second. And when you get that going on, you get an increase in electrical resistance through the Earth crust, which creates a radiation charge that comes out of the ground, which can be 3 times more dangerous than 5G. This is the thing I've been saying all the way along. There are other things that other energetic influences in our houses and our workplaces that do occur, which are as bad as 5G. And I've just written a blog, which will, I think, go out tonight, which is actually about workplaces and why people feel so terrible in them, and why people, when they come home, they feel like they're being hit by a bus, and why people, and I'm a classic, before 20, 30 years ago, before I got involved with what I'm doing now and studied building biology with the methods I use now, I used to notice about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd be just totally had it. Okay, one, you've had a big lunch, which you tended to do when you're working. It's called comfort food. So your digestive system's really under the pump after lunch. And by that time, your energy's just run down because of all the radiation in the commercial buildings. Have a read of that blog when it comes out. It's an interesting blog, and hopefully it'll go out in the newsletter tonight. Okay, so we're at 5:14. Back to some more questions. We're only usually going to go for 3/4 of an hour, but I'll just extend a little bit longer for those people who've got the questions. Okay. Kelly Moore wants to know, can hot plates go on top of the rejuvenation plate? No. Oh, yes, hot plates out of an oven. Yeah, but the rejuvenation plate probably has a maximum of about 70 or 80 degrees C. You wouldn't want to put anything that hot on them whatsoever. Okay, someone asking about, Angela, someone asked me about, do they need to put their stellar dome on next to their Wi-Fi modem? No, you don't need to. It can be anywhere in the house. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be next to your Wi-Fi modem. It could be sitting in a corner. I had a house consult, I think I spoke about this the other week, where they needed to use a stellar dome because they had a vaulted ceiling and some other issues. And they needed to use a stellar dome over the geoclings, and they needed to put it somewhere where it wasn't going to be interfered with by some of the other children that may have come to visit their children. And so we decided to put it on a sideboard behind a picture. It worked fine. No one could see it. As long as it was there, it was having an effect on the whole house. Okay. Okay, there's more questions. Let's try to find the questions again. Okay. Okay, they're pretty much answered. Someone wanted to know about the personal protection pendants. Oh, let's answer that quickly. We'll go back over that again. We're talking here, we're referring, or she's referring to the coloured orgone pendants. And so I'll just go to that page. Oh. And I'll show the page, and I'll just quickly explain that again. So orgone is not really the correct term. We call it orgonium because our process is orgonium. It's unique to us worldwide. No one else can do it. No one else does it. And people talk about orgonite. Well, I made orgonite a very short, extremely short period of time, 20 years ago, and worked out really quickly what was really going on with it. And I won't go into it. What you have with orgonite is something that's bipolar. It creates a negative charge and a positive charge, so it's actually not doing what it claims to do. Okay, let's go to our pendant page. So our pendants come in a range of colours, and that's for a reason. And something we worked out a long time ago is, okay, we all have our energetic weaknesses in our body, and it's usually coming from one of our vital organs. And so what I realised is that, what I know is that the body can, our biofield, which has a negative charge, should be strong enough to be resistant to all forms of radiation. Like, why is it that we need EMF protection? Because we're not as healthy, we're not the same people as what we were, in past times. I'm not talking about last century or the century before. If you understand what a yuga is, it may be in past yugas, which is thousands of years ago, we may have had a different energetics where, okay, thousands of years ago we didn't have 5G or Wi-Fi or electrical radiation, but we certainly always did have solar radiation, and planetary retrograde radiation has always been around. Okay, so what we've worked out is we all have a weakness, and that weakness creates a hole in our biofield. So, for example, if your thyroid is your weakness, you'll have a hole in your biofield there, which allows the thyroid then to be affected by radiation, and then other organs via the lowering of the meridian energy. So if your weakness is so thyroid, that's when the blue pendant comes in, because that's the correct colour to balance that thyroid energy, and people will be thinking, oh yeah, okay, throat chakra, but I'm just talking in general. What happens is that the biofield gets closed up, and the biofield becomes stronger, and then that's how you get your EMF protection, because the biofield has a strong negative charge. Radiation, which is harmful, has a positive charge. One is neutralised by the other at arm's reach out from the body, and that's very easily demonstrated. So green's is for thyroid, green's for liver, orange is, which looks red on the website, but that's actually orange, is for intestine, stomach. Pink is heart, and white is heart. However, white is also for brain, and purple is spleen. And if you're wanting to buy a pendant and you're not too sure which would be your colour, just email us with a photo of you or the people you want me to select the colours for, and I'll try and email you straight back with a recommendation of which colour is best, because I've been doing this for years. It's very easy for me to read people's energy fields to find that weakness straight away, and I can even test that with the computer screen, so to speak, by having the image there, reading the image off the screen, and then testing each colour appended against the image of the person until we get the right one, which always corresponds with what I'm finding anyway. Anyway, I don't want to hold anyone up any further. It's 5:21. Leanne's already had a wine. I hope you really enjoyed this today. We're going to keep the webinars going. There's so much to talk about. Like, as I said, this realization around that, you know, there's, in a sense, two different types of 5G. And that, I think, that information, I hope, helps a lot of people too. We'll do another one in 2 weeks' time. We'll drag up another subject to talk about. We might even get a little bit controversial. Like, there's some products that I've seen in the market in the past which aren't quite right, and they need to be not so much exposed or discussed. Like, not like, in a sense, where I was talking about the mats with the amethyst in them. That's something that I've been aware of for a long, long time. And I don't write blogs or, you know, bags or anything like that, but people need to be aware. Like, the people who are selling some of these products don't have the experience really to, or the knowledge of what's really going on, because it's an energetic thing, and that it's something that they think they may be correct, but when it's actually tested properly, it's getting the opposite. So thank you for joining us today. Same time, same place, 2 weeks' time, Friday afternoon, we'll do our next webinar, which we'll think of another topic that will be exciting. And you don't know what's going to happen between now and then too. Thank you. Bye.